All right. Every day is a beautiful, wonderful day under Donald Trump. There is so much news going on. I can't even cover it all. So, to help me cover some of it, I have Benny Johnson from The Benny Show. Benny, thank you so much for joining me today.
What's going on, man? Great to be here.
So, it took us about 18 months to get you on the show. I know how busy you are. I follow you, I see you travel all over the world. When you're not online, you're making babies with your wife and rebuilding the population so that Elon Musk doesn't have an aneurysm over population collapse. Thank you so much for coming on today.
You know what? Yes, it's actually really enjoyable to be a father. It gives you a good purpose. It locks you in and gives you something to live for and work for and fight for, and that's something you certainly need in these times.
Yeah. I tell people all the time the my most favorite thing in life other than being married is being a dad, and I highly recommend it. So hopefully more and more people will just keep having babies. All
How
right,
many kids? How many kids you got,
I've
Steven?
got 3.
Good man.
And
That's great. That's beyond the 2.1 that we need
yeah,
to keep going as a civilization.
we're being as patriotic as we can. We wanted to have more, but medical reasons we weren't. And we've talked about, should we pick up a few, through adoption, but we're not there just yet. So, but yeah, we've got 3, and it's an absolute joy. All right, the first thing I wanted to throw out with you is this idea. Steve Bannon is telling Bill Maher. I mean, honestly, he's telling everybody Trump is going to run in 2028, and he will be the president again. Now you have Eric Trump online. Is this going to be a real thing, or is this just trolling at a master level? Your thoughts?
Okay, so this is the 22nd Amendment you're talking about here that is codified in the Constitution, that no man shall be elected twice to the presidency. And that seems pretty cut and dry. Now, what Bannon says is we are going to test the legal term of a term limit. There's a couple ways to skin that cat. So the first and easiest way would be that President Trump perhaps runs with J.D. Vance on a MAGA ticket. They just inverse the ticket. There's no limitations on how many times you can run for vice president. That's actually happened throughout history where people have run for vice president and become president. Before Teddy Roosevelt, for instance, Donald Trump could be the vice president to J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance could hop off, right? And then Donald Trump becomes president again. And then I guess you have a big constitutional question. The second and more interesting path would be legal challenges for what happened to President Trump in his first term. I think you could argue that his first term was stolen from him from bad actors inside of the deep state. You could argue that his second rightful term in 2020 was stolen from him by bad actors inside of the deep state. And you could argue that his third term was nearly stolen from him by an assassin's bullet, of which we know absolutely nothing about the assassin at all, or who was behind it, or who was cooperating with Matthew Thomas Crooks, and so on and so forth. All we really know is that Ukraine had a big hand in all of the other assassinations, and maybe even in the Butler one. Who knows? The point is that there's a large movement that's happening right now that I guess starts as a troll movement with Eric Trump releasing the shirt and the hat saying Trump 2028, but may snowball into something bigger. I don't portend to even be remotely as close to as strategic of a thinker as Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon says it's possible. He says they're working on it right now. There's a third term project that's in motion. And so I guess we'll have to wait and see. The hardest lift would be the Senate would have to ratify a new constitutional amendment, right? So that would be the toughest thing. You'd have to get 2/3 of the Senate to ratify this if you wanted to just say Trump can straight up run for 3 straight terms. And I just don't think that you'd get that in the Senate, right, quite frankly. Yeah. Final thing I'll say on this, Pam Bondi says that it's possible. So what does that mean? Pam Bondi is the top law enforcement official in the country, and she says that Trump probably won't run for a third term. What's going on there?
Wow. Okay. No, that's really great insight. I guess 2 more that came to mind. He could be asked to become Speaker of the House. He didn't want that, when they floated that idea, but he could work his way up because they might say, well, you can't be vice president, something like that. The other option is he could just say, I'm now a woman, and it says a man can't run twice in a row. I'm going to run as a woman. But since he's got this executive order that there's only two genders and he's trying to get transgenders out of the military, I don't see him going down that rabbit hole, but it is an option that's on the table, right?
Stephen, I've often said that Donald Trump should just declare himself a woman in the office and make the left live by their rules, and then they have to crown him the first woman president. That should be maybe his final trolling act. That should be his final act, is to declare that he's a woman, insist on the pronouns, and then to call himself the first woman president.
They would lose their minds. They literally wouldn't know what to, or does he become an MS-13 gang member and then fight for his right to stay in the country?
Trump's very good at turning their weapons against them. We actually just saw this with Bill Maher, which I think is possibly Trump's greatest act of sabotage of the left that I've ever seen. This side of Elon Musk, because Elon Musk was a man of the left. He was a big-time Barack Obama supporter. Trump was able to turn him to his side, take the weapons of your enemy, and use them against them. This is how you win a war. You must be advancing. You must always be constantly moving forward. And so Donald Trump did that with Bill Maher as well. And now Bill Maher is doing like sort of love letter monologues to Donald Trump on his show, an incredible skill. So Donald Trump is regularly takes the left's most insane players, like Bill Maher calling Trump Hitler for the last 7 years, and now he loves Trump. He literally says, "I love Trump." Trump's so good at taking their weapons and turning them against them, and it's a great tactic.
Yeah, he truly is a master at that. Okay, you get guests on that bring so many breaking stories and insight. One of them recently was with lawyer Mike Davis. I had him on my show. He was fiery and obviously incredibly intelligent. He understands the law really well. But you've got Steve Bannon, you've got Mike Davis. They're saying, MAGA Republicans, be patient. There are arrests coming. These things are complicated. We've seen the cryptic texts from Dan Bongino saying, I'm not asking you to trust me, but I need you to trust me. Things are happening. Everything Kash Patel said before being sworn in as the director of the FBI. Tell us what you know from your interview with Mike Davis about possible arrests and some justice coming to the American people and also the Trump family.
So Mike was on this morning and he made what I think was a very, very good point, which is for the Biden administration, the process was the punishment. They didn't need a conviction. They just needed to drag President Trump and his supporters through hell and back, get the headlines, right? And that was a success for them. They knew they could never win on the documents case. They knew they could never win in any of the cases like in Georgia, and every single case has fallen to pieces. It's all embarrassing. Jack Smith, of course, gone in the dark of night. President Trump wants to win. In order to win a case, you have to make it bedrock. You have to make it bulletproof. You have to actually put in the work. And that requires an enormous amount of upfront work. And it's upfront work that's going upstream of a deep state that has run Washington, D.C. for my entire lifetime and yours. And so what they're having to do is to turn, one, the entire deep state barge around 180 degrees, and then two, they're having to build cases that actually can be prosecutable and you can arrest people and put them in prison. The Donald Trump case, the DOJ under Merrick Garland was a PR operation in order to try and smear and slander Donald Trump. They got slapped down and smacked down and got their little PPs punched in at the Supreme Court day and night. They were regularly humiliated and their cases thrown out entirely, like what happened in Florida here with Judge Eileen Cannon. That was a PR operation. The Trump administration's not trying to run a PR operation. They want to run an actual muscular, jaw-breaking, put people in prison operation. And to do that, it's going to take a little extra time. And so that's what Mike Davis really talked about on the show this morning. I like that strategy a lot better. You could really, you could get an indictment. Think about it this way. Would you rather have a home in SimCity? Or would you rather have like an actual physical home, right? That you can come home to and is like real and it's a door and you live in it. It's like, would you rather have a simulation of something or the real thing? This is what the Biden administration did. They made simulations. They made fake Fugazi charges up against Donald Trump in order to get the headline, in order to get something that isn't real. what President Trump and his team is building is actually the real thing, something that is durable and lasting and broken down to the studs. And so I would much prefer that. Okay. I'm more of like I'm glad I have like an IRL wife to come home to every single day and not like a bunch of OnlyFans subscriptions. Like I prefer reality than to some type of synthetic simulation. So the Trump administration is doing that right now.
All right. Okay. That's good to hear. I figured, we all just need to exercise patience. This is complex stuff. And you have to build a case. I've had Alan Dershowitz, who defended Trump in the first impeachment, on my show. He said, listen, you can indict a ham sandwich. It doesn't mean anything. Like, you've got to have an actual case that can be provable, winnable, bring the receipts and lock that thing down. I'm here for it. I'm excited. I think it's going to happen. And I was grateful to see that breaking news over on X from your show that Mike Davis is just there's so many people working behind the scenes. I wish we could all see behind the curtain of what's going on, but we can't. So I'm grateful that we've got people like Mike Davis and you that can keep us in the loop. All right, I want to switch gears. Your show is always funny. Mine's maybe a little too serious at times, but I want to bring up this is an interview with Elizabeth Warren that I believe she absolutely regrets doing. I'm just going to show 1 minute of it, but the whole interview, this guy was just on her like crazy. Listen to this.
Do you regret saying that President Biden had a mental acuity? He had a sharpness to him. You said that up until July of last year.
I said what I believe to be true.
And you think he was as sharp as you?
I said I had not seen decline. And I hadn't at that point.
You did not see any decline from 2024 Joe Biden to 2021 Joe Biden?
Not when I said that. The thing is, he was sharp. He was on his feet. I saw him live event. I had meetings with him a couple of times.
Senator, on his feet is not praise. He can speak in sentences is not praise.
All right. Fair enough. Look, the question is, what are we going to do now?
Okay.
Your thoughts on this? I mean, does she regret this or what?
It's a big lie. All right. That was the real big lie. Joe Biden was a fake president, and he used a fake White House, and he had a fake Oval Office desk, and it was like a Fisher-Price desk. And Joe Biden wasn't real. And we never knew which Joe Biden we were going to get every single day. I liked number 7 and number 4, but you can tell the difference. And they have to Photoshop him onto his own Easter card. So Joe Biden just wasn't real. He was, again, a mirage. He was something that was completely created and manufactured. And to see them all get called out, this is why the Democrat Party congressionally has an approval rating of 22% last time I checked. People don't like being lied to. It's a relationship, right? You technically have a relationship with this political party. And Republicans don't like Republican voters don't like being fed Mitt Romney and John McCain, right, for their elections. We don't like that. That leads to an atrophy inside of the party. And the Democrat Party is the same thing. You don't like being lied to. It's a relationship. And so they were lied to about Joe Biden, and it led to a catastrophe of a defeat. They lost all 7 swing states, the popular vote. There's an absolute triumphant populist MAGA movement that is not only the political energy, but the cultural energy, which is the first time ever that freedom-minded people have had the culture behind them. And so it's really devastating right now for Democrats.
Yeah, I agree. Are you familiar with podcaster David Pacman?
Yes. Debated him, I think, on Piers Morgan a couple times.
Okay, yeah. He drives me nuts. He
Really
never
good.
answers questions. He just asks more and more questions. But he started when Trump announced that he was going to run for office. He would ask every single person, was the election rigged? Was January 6th good? And then he would immediately try to humiliate people or make them twist their words or whatever. I just think this guy asking Senator Warren, do, was he really sharp? Do you regret saying that now that we know everything? And she was like a deer in the headlights. But I loved his follow-up question. Would you say that he was as smart as you? Like an ego play. And she just like, she laughs into the microphone. Like, I'm not going to tie my intelligence to a guy that needs a bib to eat Easter dinner. Your thoughts on whether we should be asking people this question. When did you notice that Joe Biden was mentally incapable, or did you cover it up?
The Joe Biden situation, what I find with my content and what we put out is that people are so over Joe Biden, and they've had a belly full of it. And everybody knows deep in their bones that Joe Biden's fake and he wasn't real and he wasn't actually in charge. And we've all seen the clip of Barack Obama saying he wants a third term and he wants to run things from the White House. You know, he wants to run things from his basement with an earpiece in his sweatpants. And then we've seen video of Joe Biden with an earpiece. So obviously Barack Obama got a third term and nobody bitched or complained about it. So why can't Trump? It's like, there's like, but like to the point, I find that nobody really wants to click on a Joe Biden, like anything about Joe Biden anymore. We're done. Like, the fraudulence has been utterly and totally revealed. The moral bankruptcy of the Democrat Party to do anything for power has been totally and completely revealed. The next step is that people need to go to jail for what happened. And I know, as a matter of fact, that charges are imminent on these things. And so here's hoping. It's like it's like you have a bad ex and you look through the embarrassing text messages, right, in this toxic relationship. And you're like, how the hell could I have gotten, how did things get so bad, right? It's like you're really fat and like now you went to hit the gym for a couple years. Now you're in shape and you like look back at these photos of you looking like a slob on the beach. And you're like, how did things get so bad? These are clips of Joe Biden. It's like a therapy thing. It's like a bad memory for every American. There's no American that remembers the Biden years and thinks, oh, those were great. Oh, that was good. I was proud of our president.
I want to tell you guys about the power of Kimchi 1. We all know that kimchi is good for our gut. There's an internal battle of good and bad bacteria every single day. And if your health is off, your happiness is off, brain fog, energy, it probably is something in your gut. Well, Kimchi 1 has 900 positive strains of bacteria. That's right, 900 to help you with your gut health. Kimchi 1 supports health in the gut, digestion, boosts your immune system, can help with eating and also losing weight. It can also help if you had the miracle shot, because a lot of that gets stuck in your gut, and Kimchi 1 helps to unclog you, to get it out of your system. Now, here's what I like. This is non-GMO, gluten-free, dairy-free, and 100% made right here in the United States. There is no filler. This is kimchi in a capsule, and you're going to absolutely love it. Now, we've got a special offer for you. You can go to mybrightcore.com/kimchi or snap the QR code and use Gardner to get 25% off. Or call them and tell them that you are a fan of my show, and you will get up to 50% off plus free shipping. Just call 888-908-4425. Kimchi 1 has been great for my own gut health, and I know it will be for yours too. Don't you think that's why Trump won, though, is because people could look back on Trump term 1 and they had nostalgia and they had more money in their bank account?
Yeah, that's right. It's also why even in the darkest days of Donald Trump, in the darkest days with like every indictment against him, right, and January 6th and all these, like, it's why you could still find people wearing MAGA hats, like walking around Walmart, right, like walking down by the river. Like, he's like, it was different. Did you ever see anybody wearing a Joe Biden hat, like in public? Like even at the height of the PSYOP, the Joe Biden PSYOP? No, you never saw that. You never saw anybody like proudly with a Joe Biden hat on. In fact, there's only one case that I know of somebody voluntarily putting a Joe Biden bumper sticker on their car. And that's the photo of Ryan Ralph's car sitting in his driveway in North Carolina. He had a Biden Harris bumper sticker on his car. So interestingly, we don't talk about that though.
Yeah, the Kamala Harris "Make America Worse Again" hats. They couldn't get them to sell. I don't know why. Nobody wanted, Biden round two with a woman, and so he just utterly destroyed them. Do you think Joe Biden's calendar is going to just completely fill up now that he's lowered his speaking rate to $300,000 per hour?
I don't know if Joe Biden's real, man. I don't know. There's members of my staff that say birds aren't real. I'm not going to out them here, but I don't know if Joe I real, dude. I saw the Joe Biden Easter card. There's no way that's actually him there. Something's going on, and it's like a Roomba. You just got to plug him back in. Maybe he just stuck on the charging dock. I don't know, man. I don't know what's happening to that guy. I want some, gonna need some proof of life. He did go out and give a speech last week, didn't he? He went out and gave a speech last week, and he talked about colored kids. His words, not mine. Don't come for me, okay? He's your guys' president. They talked they trotted him out. They let him off the Roomba charger one time, and he goes out and he's talking about black kids, or the way I used to call them, colored kids. This is what he said, okay? So I don't think you'll ever see Joe Biden again. I thought that was probably his last time we'll see him on camera.
Yeah, and the other thing that he spoke about was that Trump is going to destroy Social Security. And then within 48 hours, Elon and Doge, they're like, hey, we just cleaned up millions of people, which was costing the American taxpayer $12 billion a month. Oh, gosh, Trump, you're really destroying it by keeping all that additional money at the Treasury. Everything they say is just either a lie or they're doing it, right? If they accuse you of something, they're doing it. And if they say something about Trump, they're just absolutely lying. Do you think that there is a civil war going on within the Democrat Party? Because from everything I can tell, they don't know up from down, left from right. Like David Hogg is like, hey, I'm going to unseat anyone who's been in Congress for too long. And they're like, well, we're going to fire you. They don't know whether to act in the best interest of their voters or to act in the best interest of illegal immigrants that were trafficking and in gangs and rapists. And I don't know. I don't know how to think like a Democrat or a liberal. Can you please help me?
Okay. Well, it's a tough position to put yourself into, but I'll point you to just a single canary in the coal mine here. You got to watch Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer is at 40% approval, according to the latest polling numbers with Democrats in New York. AOC is licking her chops and is so excited to potentially go swaggerjack that Senate seat. AOC believes that Chuck Schumer represents everything evil. And she is raring to go, and she's traveling around the country, and there are big crowds that are showing up to listen to AOC yammer, and this is something that obviously I think you discount at your own peril. There is a populist left. Donald Trump is the populist right, but there is a fraudulent populist left, of course, that goes on their fighting oligarchy tour while using their $36 million Falcon jets to get there, $15,000 an hour for AOC's and Bernie Sanders' private jet. But nonetheless, it has grassroots appeal for a specific type of left-wing voter, and that's what that's the thing you got to watch. You got to watch what happens to Chuck Schumer. They shoved Pelosi out the door. They've shoved Biden out the door. That entire generation is now getting thrown into the wood chipper. And if the full woke progressive and Marxist takeover of the Democrat Party will happen when AOC takes Chuck Schumer's seat. Primaries Chuck Schumer. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's very insightful. When you said he was at 40%, I'm thinking, wasn't Mitch McConnell at 19%? I don't even know how these guys have such high numbers.
And he's gone. Mitch McConnell's gone. He gone.
Yeah, well, mentally, they wheeled him out and stuffed him in a bus faster than they did Hillary Clinton when she passed out that one day.
We still don't know what happened there.
No, we don't know.
Idea. They said that she needed a drink of water, and loading her up like a slab of beef.
Maybe we should get the video footage from the fake birds that are really just recording devices, according to some of your staffers over there.
Maybe it was the fake birds. Maybe that was it. Hillary should have blamed the fake birds on passing out and having to be dragged like a side of meat with her shoes falling off her, her security. Thank God that guy was filming. You know, that was kind of like the earlier days, right, of streaming and of YouTube content. And those are technically like those are early days. What was that, 2016? It would have been fall of 2016, right? So, you know, what just wasn't as ubiquitous as it is now. And so to get that on footage, that really changed the election, I think. And so that guy deserves, you know, a huge clap on the back.
Absolutely. Okay, from my perspective, Trump is cutting off the head of the snake with USAID. He's shutting down, you know, somebody was receiving these millions of Social Security checks every single month. He's shutting down the Department of Justice, or excuse me, of Education, which was really just a money laundering operation for the Democrat Party. He's doing his best to shut down the money laundering operation of the Russia-Ukraine war. And now it appears, according to Politico, he's going to go after Act Blue, which in my estimation, there's been allegations against them that they are just a giant money laundering operation using identity theft of senior citizens to ram through thousands, hundreds of donations to the Democrat Party, most likely foreign money entering in. What do you think they might find when they pull back the curtain on Act Blue?
There's a user on X that I follow. His name's Matthew. He does a ton of reporting. He's an independent reporter based in North Carolina. And he did a search on his name this morning on the Act Blue database. And it turns out that he's donated to a bunch of Democrats in Kansas. They had his name and address and everything on there. What the hell's going on with that? Well, he's never been to Kansas, he says. We're going to have him on the show tomorrow, actually, to talk about this. Like, this is identity theft, and there's a reason why it works for Act Blue. And there's a reason, of course, for it. And the greater overall reason is to, of course, rig elections on behalf of oligarchs, most likely foreign oligarchs from America's enemies. You have to look at Act Blue as a vector for the richest and most evil people on earth to insert themselves into our republic in a totally criminal way. You can only donate so much to any candidate. It depends on if you're talking about state level candidates, but federal candidates, you know, where a lot of the sausage gets made, these federal candidates, they're very strict donation limits. Some of them, I think it's like $2,500, maybe $5,000, like de minimis, actually, you know, in the grand scheme of things. You can donate to PACs, you know, larger portions of money, but if you're donating directly to the candidates, it's major limits. And so you're locked down with how much you can give. But you got, okay, so that's the problem. Grandma in West Virginia can only donate so much money to our preferred candidate, the leftist that we want to win. How do you fix that? Well, what if you had the name and address of every single Democrat in West Virginia? Well, let's use a swing state because it's a better example. Like, okay, so there's a swing state of Pennsylvania. You need the Democrat to win. If you had the name and address of all of these Democrats, and you have no credit card verification, which is what Act Blue has, no credit card verification, you can just pump money, right? Then you could take, let's say, a massive pot of money, and you could funnel it through all of these names and addresses. And it would look like, on paper, legitimate donations until you go up and knock on their door and ask, hey, did you donate like $80,000 last election cycle? And the lady goes, no, I'm on Social Security. You know, I'm on a fixed income. And that happens all the time. This is happening to Jasmine Crockett. James O'Keefe has a whole expose on this. The whole purpose of Act Blue is the data in order to get around the law and to do ghost donations, phantom donations to Democrats to fill their coffers. Now, here's what we know about Democrats as a species, as left-wingers in America as individuals. They're not particularly rich. They're not generous. They do not give of their money. And so how are people like Kamala Harris raising billions of dollars? It really begs the question, are there that many generous leftists? And there are not, actually. And so what you're finding again and again and again is legitimate fraud that is being funneled through Act Blue. Who knows where the money's coming from? Probably from the Communist Party of China, most likely. George Soros, who knows? Who knows? But it's totally and patently illegal. Elon Musk, who's in charge of this stuff, says it is the world's largest money laundering operation. And you have verifiable, demonstrable proof that these people are not donating. So who's donating on their behalf? Now, Act Blue, on the other hand, is in total flames. All of their executives have fled. All of their entire legal team has been gutted. They have one lawyer left. He's been locked out of his computer. The last message he sent was to all the staff declaring that whistleblowers, that you can't be a whistleblower inside of our organization. Oh my, that's bad. So what do they have cooking? This kind of goes back to the question of doing it right, building the correct house. I want Act Blue to go down. I want these criminals to go to jail. This is a very complicated situation. I pray that the Department of Justice is actively, ferociously looking into this and will drop massive charges. It sure seems like there's a lot of panic going on in Act Blue, and rightfully so.
Yes. I can't wait to see where the money trails lead us. They need to unleash the FBI and Doge. It's going to be a glorious thing. All right. I know we have a hard out. I appreciate you coming on. Just in our final time together, do you support what Senator Ron Johnson said on your show, that there needs to be a new investigation into the truth of 9/11?
Yeah, nobody can. So he went straight into Tower 7, which is how did Tower 7 fall? And there's no explanation for that. There's no explanation for how Tower 7 falls. So I'd really like to have truth and reconciliation about that. Like, can somebody please explain that to me, like calmly and slowly, so that I can understand, right? Because I'm just like a YouTuber. Here's a question that I have, which is how the hell do these individuals, the hijackers, get into the country? And the crazy part about this is that they got a rubber-stamped visa from John Brennan, who was actually the Doha station chief, serving in the Middle East. John Brennan, who would go on to become the CIA director, right? Like, that guy was rewarded with awesome powers of being the CIA director for, I think, all 8 years under Barack Obama. And he's the guy who led in all of the hijackers. Well, that's insane. Why wasn't he fired and prosecuted for this? Why do you let all the hijackers come into the country? They overstay their visas. They're here illegally. They're taking flight training courses. How do they fly those planes? I mean, it's a big question, right? Like, how do you fly those planes with such accuracy if you failed? The pilots failed their flight courses. Yeah, the big question that I think collapses the whole thing is already been put on paper from our own federal government. You can go look up the documents that came directly from investigators in Guantanamo Bay, where they were interviewing the masterminds behind September 11th and the connections between people inside of the CIA and people inside of the FBI. Now, I'm not painting with a broad brush and saying I know who did it or I know who did what. But what this report has, and I've covered it on the show, but it's real and it's declassified and everybody can go read it. These are not secret documents. What this report came to the conclusion of is that there were systemic failings that seem to be almost by design in order to get these hijackers here into the country, and working with the Saudi government to do it, and that there needed to be some major questions about how the FBI and the CIA were operating in this time period for America. And that's what I'd really like to see dug into. And how does John Brennan get rewarded when the hijackers came to the country on his request, right? On his permission? It seems like there's a ton of questions that need to be answered. I'm glad that Ron Johnson had the bravery to come out and just say what we've all been thinking for a long time.
Yeah. Well, every time they did an investigation on JFK, they learned more truth. So I think it's time for round two. When you said systemic, purposeful failure, you made me think of Joe Biden's southern border. But we're out of time. Thank you very much. You're a national treasure for keeping everybody in the loop on what's really going on. I'm going to put direct links to X as well as your YouTube show down below. Thank you, Benny Johnson, for coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
It's an honor, Stephen. Thank you.